It's special. I don't know what it is about it, but it's special. Here on this channel, I test and play and showcase a lot of different eyeshadow palettes. I just love them. I love them. And as much as I love a bit of color and a bit of sparkle, because I do, I'm really just a basic bee at heart, if I'm being completely honest with you. That's the realm I belong in. So today I thought I would show you my top 5 favorite neutral eyeshadow palettes that I think would add something to your collection if you are a neutral lover like me. Now, before we get started, let's go ahead and do the YouTubey things. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Share it to the Twitter, share it to the gram, all of those good things, you know, the things the kids do. I'm aware I'm very embarrassing. But seriously, thank you so much if you do subscribe. We are on our way to 1,000. I'm going to show you guys 5 of my favorite neutral eyeshadow palettes that I have in my collection. I'm going to show you in no particular order. Please don't make me do that. I can't. I will do a video where I rank all my eyeshadow palettes, but I just don't have the heart to do it yet, okay? Okay, we all saw how hard the Pat McGrath Mothership ranking palette video was for me, all right? I can't do it again so soon. So this isn't in a particular order. These are just particular eyeshadow palettes that I think if you are someone looking for an everyday eyeshadow palette of some sort, that these are going to work really well for you, and I'll explain why with each one, but just important to remember, again, disclaimer, these are not in order. So let's start with number 5, because I think that with this brand behaving the way that it's behaving or going at the moment, people have probably forgotten about this palette. And yes, this particular brand isn't releasing any particular products of interest lately, but this eyeshadow palette is always an MVP in my mind. So the particular palette that I'm talking about is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam eyeshadow palette. You could also interchange this with probably the Modern Renaissance palette. I'll put a photo of that up here. If you are more of a berry toned neutral wearer than an everyday like kind of brown neutral wearer, I think both of these particular palettes from Anastasia Beverly Hills are cult classics for a very, very good reason. So this is the Soft Glam eyeshadow palette. Now, I adore this palette. I adore it. I think so many people do, and I think it was so hyped up and so loved for so long from so many people for a very, very good reason. There's really nothing that you can't do with this palette within that neutral range. Like, it has every kind of shade of warm tone brown, or almost some mauves in here as well that you could possibly want. You really can transition this particular palette from day to night to wedding to a casual brunch to shopping to work meetings to anything. Like, you can literally do anything with this particular eyeshadow palette. It is just so pretty. Now, it does have a couple of really beautiful shimmer shades in here as well. These two in particular I just absolutely adore, but even if you're a gold lover, you've got a gold shade in here as well. You've also got a couple of lighter golds, but also the quality of this palette is second to none. Like, this is where Anastasia belongs. I don't know what Anastasia Beverly Hills is trying to achieve lately. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know where they've gone, but this is the soul of their brand apart from their brow products, and this is where they belong. They need to bring back this eyeshadow formula and release a really innovative color scheme, and that's what they need to go back to, because this is effing good. That's all I'm saying. If you had this palette and you are a neutral eyeshadow palette, you literally could have this palette in your collection if you're not like a massive, like if you're not someone that's looking to have a huge makeup collection and you just want one eyeshadow palette that's really going to do any occasion and you like the warm tones, this is the girl. You don't need anything else. This is it. It's so good. Next up on the neutral eyeshadow palette train is the Viseart Etendu, however you want to pronounce it, Paris Love Letter palette. This is such a gorgeous little palette. I think it's quite underrated in I don't know, maybe all of the Viseart little palettes like this are a bit underrated. I think that this is a really, really beautiful palette for everyday wear. And what I mean by that is, like, this isn't probably the kind of palette for you if you want something that's like deeper and darker and sultrier, obviously. But if you're someone that just really likes that really soft, natural makeup wear, something that's like, is she wearing makeup? Is she not wearing makeup? A very soft kiss of color. Every now and then you want a little bright pop pop of color with this purple and this green, but really you just want to sit in a very casual makeup space, this is the palette for you. The other thing that this palette is really good for is if you're very new to makeup and you just want like an introductory palette and you are of a lighter skin tone, I will say this palette's not going to be good if you wear a medium to dark, deep dark skin tone, but they do have other palettes in their brand that would suit you if that was the case. But if you are my skin tone or lighter, or a little bit darker than me, the thing about this palette or their formula in general is that it is beginner friendly. And what I mean by that is these shadows literally blend themselves. Like they basically pick themselves up, put them on your eye and like work together to create an eye look on their own. You really don't have to do much to get these eyeshadows to work. They are flawless and stunning, and they're not so overly pigmented that if you're starting to learn how to use eyeshadow, they're gonna have a lot of mistakes or a lot of mishaps because they are just a little bit softer pigmented, so that they're really quite forgiving if you're not quite sure how to work with them. But they're just beautiful for like that everyday, very light makeup wearer. I will say though, these shades, the metallic shades are really, really special and they're very, very pretty, but I will say that they are a little bit flaky. So that would probably be my only thing. The metallics in this palette aren't as beginner friendly as the mattes, but overall I think as long as you keep in mind to keep your, like to either do your eyes first or wet your brush, it is very, very beginner friendly and perfect for someone that really just wants that intro into an eyeshadow palette, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, so next up is the Sydney Grace and Mel Thompson Tiny Marvels palette. Now, hear me out, because I know when you look at this palette, all you see is color, but honestly, if you take away this purple and this green, is that not one of the most wearable palettes you've seen? And that's the thing, is this palette, when you break it down and you really look at each one of these mattes in here, apart from the green and the purple, it is so, so, so wearable. It's an absolutely beautiful everyday neutral palette. I actually reach for this eyeshadow palette quite a lot on the everyday because I really like the tones of the neutral shades in this palette. Like this one here, which is called Tree Hopper, and this one here, Walking Stick, they're unique enough that you could add this palette to your collection even if you already have about like 10 neutral palettes, because the neutrals in here are just slightly different to anything you will own in your collection, but also following along that really neutral simple train that you could really wear this on the everyday. And then you've got those pops of color, so if you're someone that really wants something that's going to really be a traditional everyday kind of neutral palette for you, but then every now and then you want to like throw in a pop of color, this is the palette for you. Also, this formula is super, super, super beginner friendly. The mattes in here, if I can spit that out, really blend themselves. Like they honestly do. They are flawless. This palette is what I'm wearing on my eyes today. It took me 2 seconds to create this eyeshadow look. They're very pigmented, but they're very, very, very blendable. And the metallics in here, oh my gosh, I have to show you guys the metallics in this palette because I've never swatched metallics that are so like wet looking in my life, and they honestly go on the eyes like that. Like they're just really, really special. I truly feel like Sydney Grace Co is honestly, like I just feel like this brand doesn't get the hype and love and attention that it deserves, because look at these metallics. Like I know they're on the palm of my hand, so they're going to be a little bit warmer than normal and like more wet looking than normal, but honestly they go on the eye exactly like this. The Sydney Grace Co formula, I honestly think, is the best formula nearly on the market. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm actually even probably gonna say, as much as I love Pat McGrath, I love the uniqueness of the Pat McGrath Astral shades, but if I had to pick one eyeshadow formula to keep in my collection for the rest of time, it would be this one so far that I've tried. It's special. I don't know what it is about it, but it's special. Second to last that I'm going to mention is the Lunar Beauty Eternal Eclipse palette. Now, I wouldn't say that this is this palette is an everyday wearable palette, because look at the beautiful tones in here. You've got a little bit of you've got a mix of warm and cool tones in here. You've got a deep blue, you've got a deep like kind of sparkly black. You've got all of the tones that you really would wear. However, I do think that this is kind of catered towards someone that's maybe got a little bit of a lighter neutral palette in their collection that they can use on the everyday, and they want a neutral eyeshadow palette that they can take to like the transition to nighttime, for example. So I would say this is a little bit more of a neutral glam kind of palette. This is like the best neutral palette to have in your collection, if you just want to have that one palette that's like for those glam looks and you want to step it up a notch, this is your girl. The formula is stunning. It really reminds me a lot of the Natasha Denona formula, if I'm being completely honest with you. I just think the formula of this palette is really, really beautiful. The blues in here are so pigmented. Like, these blues are the reason why I purchased this palette in the first place, and they did not disappoint me. They are freaking flawless on your eyes. I know that a blue isn't neutral, but just in case you were wondering. But also all of these other shades, they're just special. They're so beautiful. Like, Manny did such a good job on this palette. It's really like, and for the price of it, honestly, he could charge double for this eyeshadow palette. In my opinion, the quality is that good. Now, last but not least on our little neutral train today is the Natasha Denona Glam palette. Now, this is a cool toned neutral eyeshadow palette. This is a palette that I honest to goodness reach for on the everyday. Quite often, more than not, I am wearing this particular eyeshadow palette. I adore it. I don't know, I'm really vibing with cool tones at the moment, which is a surprise. I'm liking the difference of them, and I'm liking them on my skin tone. I just love this. This is another one of those palettes that you could just have this one palette in your collection and you are one and done, because you can really transition this to literally any occasion in your entire life. You could use this particular eyeshadow palette for. The metallics in here are so buttery and pigmented and easy to use. Again, I do recommend wetting your brush when you use these, but you don't have to. You can definitely just use your finger or something. I just prefer to use a wet brush, to be honest, with all of my metallics. The mattes in this palette blend themselves. They blend themselves. Honestly, I will link down below all of the tutorials I've got up already using this particular eyeshadow palette, and you will see just how quickly it is to create a look using this palette. It's so easy, so simple, so beautiful, so glam. This is my, I mean, I've only ever tried the Lila palette from Natasha Denona, so I can't really make a very fair statement when I say this, but this is definitely my favorite Natasha Denona palette that I own. I only own two, so it's not a massive statement, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone say a bad word about this palette, and if I did, I would genuinely be shocked. I would be taken aback, and I'd be like, I don't know how this palette doesn't work for you. I really don't, because and I'm a Natasha Denona skeptic. Like, I didn't have a good experience with the Lila palette, but she's changed me with this palette. I'm like ready to purchase everything nearly, because it's really that good. In fact, I really think that you could pick up Soft Glam and Natasha Denona Glam, one warm tone, one neutral tone, and you have every single eyeshadow palette you could ever need in your collection. If you're a neutral lover like I am, you wouldn't need anything else. You would literally just have these two eyeshadow palettes, you'd be done. Done, because you've got your warm tone, your cool tone, and off you go, you're happy. You've got every occasion you could cater for. But the other palettes are just fun with those little extra pops of color, if that's what you're kind of looking for as well, because sometimes it's nice, maybe you're just someone that wants like one eyeshadow palette and you can just play with some color every now and then something like the Tiny Marvels or even the Viseart palette is going to really cater to you. You know what I'm saying? So that is my top 5 neutral eyeshadow palette recommendations. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was just a quick one for you. There's obviously so many more neutral eyeshadow palettes out there. I just picked the ones in my collection that honestly I would truly recommend anyone picking up. I don't think anyone would really pick up one of these eyeshadow palettes and feel disappointed. And that's kind of how I came at the suggestions of this particular video. It was like, what are my holy grail eyeshadow palettes? And I think you can even tell that from my channel. A lot of my videos have these particular palettes in them. In fact, I think the only palette is Soft Glam that I haven't done a video on, so maybe I need to. But I do, even my Instagram, if you go on my Instagram, these are kind of like the palettes that regularly feature on my Instagram as well, because I just love them. I use them on the everyday. I stand by them. I just think they're phenomenal. I do. I just think they're phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. Are some of these your holy grail neutral palettes as well, or are some other palettes your holy grails? And if they are, please let me know what your holy grail neutral palettes are down below, because I'm really looking to expand my collection at the moment and really try some new brands. I'm ready to try and dip my toes in the water of some new brands, if you will. So please let me know your holy grail neutral palettes down below. I'm super interested in hearing your suggestions. Now, if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching until this point. I truly appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you next time. Bye!